Hello, everybody, and welcome to Show Hoppers. I'm Kirt, joined, as always, with my former high school teacher, Mr. Sal. How are you doing, Mr. Sal?
I'm very excited, Kirt. Today we are thrilled to welcome the creator, writer, producer of The Artful Dodger, James McNamara. Dr. McNamara, Jim, thank you so much for being here.
It's such a pleasure. I'm very glad to be here, and thank you for having me on the show.
Wonderful. We're so excited to have you. We love the series. We've been talking about trying to get someone from the series on, and the fact that it's you who is the originator of the series makes this even more special.
You're very kind. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, of course. You've had a really interesting career, though, because you haven't always been in television, right? Now you're a writer, a showrunner. But can you tell us about the careers you've had aside from your roles in The Artful Dodger?
Sure. My career path has always been driven ultimately to get me to where I am now, I think. But I started my career when I finished undergrad and law school. I got a scholarship to go to Oxford University to do a PhD in my undergraduate major, which was English literature. And I had always wanted to work. I'd always wanted to do what I'm doing now. But when I was growing up, I went to undergrad and I grew up in Australia in the bush outside of Perth. And this was the early 2000s, so pre-social media. We didn't have internet at home when we were in college, and there just wasn't the same access to information, particularly that far away from LA or from London. Like, how would you go about even beginning to think about working in the industry? I came from a household where nobody had done anything to do with television or film, and so I loved Hugh Laurie and Stephen Fry, Emma Thompson, Richard Curtis, Ron Atkinson. All these people seem to have a common thread, which is that they'd been to Oxford or Cambridge. And so I kind of thought, for us in Australia, it's financially not feasible to go there as undergraduates, but it's quite a common route to go to grad school at Oxford or Cambridge if you get good grades in your undergraduate degree. So I worked really hard all through my undergrad while doing a lot of theatre as well to try and get the grades to go to Oxford or Cambridge to somehow get closer towards film and TV, which really didn't work at all at first. But I did do a lot of the work that then later informed The Artful Dodger, completely unintentionally. So when I finished at Oxford, it was the middle of the financial crisis and also the first writer's strike. So, and I was up to my ears in school debt. So the idea of trying to get a job in TV was just a non-starter. So I was offered a job at a big American law firm, and I said, well, I guess I'm going to go be a lawyer right now, which was a good fallback plan. Right. So I practiced law for nearly 5 years, but I did that quite purposefully. Firstly, I had no idea whether I would be any good at writing television. Secondly, I didn't have any money, and I figured that to be a TV writer, I needed money to write, and that being a lawyer seemed to me the way to make as much money as possible in circumstances where you're not being a criminal and you can't do math like me. So I basically had this idea I was going to save up $100,000 and put that aside, and that was going to be my startup capital. So I really didn't like being a lawyer very much at the time. I was really fortunate to work with some brilliant lawyers who are wonderful mentors. And now I'm really glad that I did, because it gives me a lot of the skill set that I use as an executive producer. But every night I went home and wrote. Like, I was kind of monomaniacal. Like, could be 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. I'd write. On the weekends, I would write. I was really obsessed about it.
Wow.
And eventually, after about 5 years, I'd hit my target. And I quit. And I said, okay, well, here I am. I'm ready to join the film industry. Please, can I have a job? And there was a resounding silence. And so I applied to film school and went to film school at Afters in Sydney, which was a tremendous experience. I worked with some brilliant professors there who are still dear friends and mentors. And aside from it being a great educational experience, it introduced me to my agent, who's still my wonderful agent and dear, dear friend and producing partner, Catherine Fleming. And so I walked out of the door of film school and started working in television. So that was kind of my twisty-turny path. But having said that, the two backgrounds that I have outside of television, which is practicing corporate law and then also having a weird PhD in 19th century medicine and literature, have both directly helped me do my job on the Artful Dodger. So it's quite a curvy path, but it makes sense in my head.
That's incredible. What a great story. At what point did you realize this may actually work?
Yeah, well, yeah. How did you actually get to do it?
I don't know if it will.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no,
we think it has, by the way. So
yeah, we'll get into that. But
you're very kind. No, I was really lucky to start. I walked out of film school into work. So I was. It's a testament to AFTRS, the Australian Film, Television, Radio School, which is our national film school in Australia. I got my first job opportunity through AFTRS. It was because of AFTRS that I was able to sign with a truly brilliant agent who has built my career and is a central reason that the Artful Dodger is what it is today. And so I was working in writers' rooms for years, and it's very common in the film industry to work on shows that don't get made as a writer.
Yep.
So I think I'd worked on 12 shows in 12 different writers' rooms before I had no presence on IMDb at all because none of the shows went anywhere. Wow. And that's, as the writer, you get hired, you do the writers' rooms, you write the scripts. And then if you're not a producer, it's in the hands of other people, and maybe it gets made, maybe it doesn't. And, most shows don't get made. So I was living a comfortable life, having fun making TV that no one was seeing.
That sounds bad.
And then, that's the trade-off though, right? Is because, you get paid well when you're a TV writer. You get to work with amazing people. I was working for people that had Academy Awards and BAFTAs, and I worked with some real heroes of mine during those periods, including my fellow executive producer on The Artful Dodger, Rachel Gardner, who was my first boss, who taught me how to make TV back in the day, years and years ago. So it was wonderful to get to reunite with Rachel on season 2 of Dodger. So yeah, it had its challenges, and there's a really tough spot during the pandemic when everyone was having a really difficult time. So professional concerns were really lower down the threshold of concerns at that point. But for me, work was really thin on the ground. And then I got the news that Dodger was greenlit to scripts. And so that was the moment I felt that this might all come off. But I think it wasn't until I started working with the leads and hearing how they responded to the scripts that made me realize, okay, this isn't just a fluke. I think I can probably do this job.
Yeah. Well, pretty clearly to us you can, because we love the series. We find it to be funny, emotional, it's intellectual, it's got this really cool style with these amazing musical moments within it. The first word I use to describe the series is always fun. I just think it's so much fun. And I love Charles Dickens, by the way. I'm sure I don't know nearly as much about his work as you do. I mean, you have an English literature degree, so I'm sure you know plenty more than I do. But on the list of adjectives I would use to describe Dickens, fun isn't probably near the top. It's there somewhere, but not probably near the top. And yet you chose to extend or sequelize this Charles Dickens novel in a really fun way. So I guess my questions are, why Dickens? Is he your favorite writer? Why Dickens?
I think that Dickens was a great jumping off point for this show. I think the show's now moved beyond Dickens, although I suppose I do borrow the occasional Dickensian character. But I do love Dickens. Dickens, I'd say, is probably my favorite novelist. But I wasn't an enormous Dickens fan before I did Dodger. In fact, I've become a Dickens lover by virtue of doing Dodger. For me, Oliver Twist as a book, the character of Oliver annoys me. I really dislike the character, as you probably can tell.
That comes across.
Whereas Dodger and Fagin, they're where the show becomes electric. As soon as they walk onto the page, the show lights up. And to me, obviously, Dickens is writing in a serialized fashion, like a television writer is today.
Yes. When
he was writing one chapter, he was editing the last one and plotting the one to come, right? And so he couldn't then go back over the book and go, well, actually, this Oliver Twist guy is a bit of a wet lettuce, and Jack Dawkins is a bit of So for me, when I think about Oliver Twist, it all comes to life when Dodger and Fagin swagger onto the page. And, I was invited to come in and pitch on a take on an adaptation of Oliver Twist when I pitched this version of the show, and I was fortunate enough to get the chance to go away and develop it and then to write a pilot. And so for me, what I love about Dickens is that his characterization is extraordinary. He's
Agreed.
rich. He's really steeped in Shakespeare, and Shakespeare is my favorite writer.
Okay.
I'm a Shakespeare tragic, and so I think that the characters that Dickens brings really inspire me. But also, I think that Dickens is always writing about people trying to find a sense of home and safety and security in a gritty and dangerous world. And I think if I had to sort of come up with an overarching premise for the Artful Dodger, that's what it is. We certainly decided to be irreverent with Dickens and to have fun and to, in Australian terms, take the piss a bit with Dickens. Thus, our Oliver Twist becomes a villain, wonderfully played by Hal Compton.
Great twist. No pun intended.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I think that in this season, we have a Dickensian breath that goes through it. I read a lot of Dickens between series, and I borrowed, of course, Uriah Heep just because I think there's no real story well reasoning for that other than I think he's an amazing villain, and I wanted to borrow him. So it was Benedict Hardy did a great performance there, and it was really fun to get to play with him. So, to me, the writers, I actually am a method writer in the sense that I only read things written before 1860 while I'm writing, just to keep the cadences in my head.
Sure.
So I read a lot of Dickens. I reread Pride and Prejudice by Austen, because why wouldn't you? And I read a lot of Shakespeare while I'm writing Dodger, which I kind of draw on actually more for Fagin, and then also for plot structure stuff as well. Elizabethan comedy is quite important for the plot structuring of Dodger. But yes, I'd say there's a Dickensian breath through this season.
Yes.
I hope that he would have seen the funny side of what we did, but if he didn't, oh well.
I love it.
All right. Well, so in that case, how long have you been working on the Artful Dodger for? From pre-production, 10 years, really? Wow.
10 years. Yeah, I wrote the Bible for it, the television Bible. I had my first meeting on it in the end of 2016. Wrote the Bible 2017. I wrote the pilot end of 2018, started 19. And then I think we went to scripts towards the end of 2021. And then we wrote through 22, filmed season 1 in 22 and 3, and released in 23. And then I went, and then there was a hiatus where we were kind of figuring out what would happen.
Yes.
And then we went back into production. So it's been a long process, but it's been a joy to get to spend that much of my life on these fun characters.
That's pretty long. Like, what was the hardest part about, if you had to name one, or at least a few?
The hardest part is always going from nothing to something, like going from blank page to whole episode. I've often had to work under extraordinary time pressure on the show, and that's really challenging because if you have to rewrite an episode in 3 days, I've gone grey as a result. It can be really challenging because I work with such an extraordinary cast and such a brilliant crew, and for me, I feel a really deep sense of responsibility to get the material right and to make sure it's as good as it possibly can be for that incredible team. And so that's difficult. Obviously there was a long wait between seasons where we were kind of, will we, won't we, which was challenging, but that's just the nature of this business, unfortunately. So, but I think that's the difficulty for me is always trying to make sure that I'm providing material that's at the right level for the extraordinary cast and crew that I'm fortunate to work with.
Yeah, they are great, but so are you. And that interval between seasons 1 and 2, what was going on there? We kind of had thought, well, we haven't heard anything, so I guess it's done. And we, by the way, were okay with it. One of the things we really admire is anybody who can write a season of television and end it in such a way that you want more, but you're satisfied enough if you don't get more. And I felt, and I think Kirt agrees, that season 1 ended in a perfect way so as to make you want more, but you're comfortable if it didn't happen. And we kind of thought, well, I guess it's not going to happen. So how did it come back? What happened to bring it back?
Well, firstly, thank you. I fought really hard to land that ending where it did, because I wanted it to do that exact thing, where you've got catharsis and closure. If it doesn't return, but there's enough interest to continue on, I personally don't believe on leaving on really hard plot breaks. I think the audience deserves a degree of closure, but yes, you of course have to leave a hook into another season. And so, and I think that we ended in a place that was right for the show. And if it had just been one season, I would have felt comfortable with where it landed. But obviously, we're hoping to make more. Look, there's only so much I can say about the internal machinations of these things, but I think the key thing was ultimately that it was a really difficult time for the industry.
Sure.
Between seasons, we had the actors' strike and the writers' strike, which had an enormous commercial impact on the industry. And so, the usual kind of expectations were thrown out the window a bit. And so it was really hard not to know what was happening, but I feel very grateful to have had extraordinary support from Sony Pictures, who owns Kirt, who produces the show, and also from Disney, our team in Australia. Sony and Disney were really in our corner. They fought really hard for the show. And so I feel very fortunate to have had incredible partners in the studio and production companies really pushing for the show to write again. And then also, the audience. The audience is one. We have a wonderful audience. There's a really committed fan base online, which I so appreciate. And they were noisy. They were loud and wanting another series, and that mattered. That counted.
Yeah. It's because I signed that petition, isn't it?
Yeah.
That petition was amazing. we talked about that petition on set.
Really?
A lot of signatures on that petition. It was a real honor. So no, I think all that stuff matters. And so when we then got the nod to go for another season, the challenge is there's always really there are window periods when these shows can be made and when they can be released that depend on all sorts of different factors, from actors' options to what's launching at certain times and in the studio's calendar. So we actually had a really tight window to do this second season. We had half the time to write that we did on the first season, which was a lot of pressure, obviously. But to me, I had a wonderful experience working on the first season. I worked with a friend and mentor of mine, Andrew Knight, who's one of Australia's most decorated screenwriters, an extraordinary guy. And one of the things that he taught me was just focus on the writing, tune out everything else, and have fun when you're writing it. And that's something we've tried to. It's interesting you say the show's fun. We try to have fun when we write it. We try to have fun when we make it. The president of Sony Pictures was kind enough to let us borrow his office when he was overseas on the lot at Sony. And I feel bad because I think we disrupted the entire C-suite by howling with laughter for a few days on the lot at Sony while we make it. So we had fun doing it. But the pressure was such that, we had to work really fast and instinctually. And I think that only really worked because I got to work with Rachel this season, who I had a long-standing relationship with, is a really close creative mentor of mine. And then I also got to work with Cameron Welsh, a series producer who is a very experienced writer, director, producer in his own right with a lot of US experience. And we had we really hit it off and worked really we were each other's partners in crime on this series on the ground. And so those two kind of trusted partnerships were very helpful for getting the speed that we needed to get moving. And also, Disney and Sony gave us what we needed to move that fast. I feel very grateful to have had a huge amount of trust and freedom from the studios and the production companies to make the show the way I thought it should be made for the second season. And that made that very tight time frame doable. So, but it was a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, season 1 was beloved, and we've enjoyed season 2.
Oh, thank you.
You have pretty high reviews for it.
Before you say that, Kirt, we should let you know.
Actually, that is true.
We have not watched the finale yet of season 2.
Okay, all right.
Primarily
that
because we didn't want this interview to have that as a focus. We wanted to talk about the whole series. So we have deprived ourselves of the finale. We will watch it probably tonight. So we just don't want to. We'd rather not be spoiled if you can help it.
I won't give you any spoilers. I enjoyed writing that finale. I think I wrote it on an airplane. I like writing on planes. And I live in America, but I film in Australia, so I do a lot of flying. The planes are great because you get strapped into a seat and you can push a button for coffee. So it's a good spot to ride.
Totally great.
Sorry, Kirt, I cut you off. You were saying
you got a season 2, partly because season 1 was so great, and I mean the series. I'm sure you look at the reviews, right?
Oh yeah, I should. I see all of them,
and it is pretty highly reviewed. For example, Rotten Tomatoes, it's 96, 97%. how does that make you feel? Just knowing you were able to write this, and seemingly it's been a life dream of yours, and it's out there, even if it stops here at season 2.
Yeah, I hope it won't. I really, I think there's. I would love to go on and do a third series. I don't know whether we'll get to do a third yet. I'm still waiting for it yet. But there's a.
We'll sign a petition.
Well, that'd be helpful. I'd love to do it. I know the leads would love to do it. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, but we'll have to find out. Look, I feel relieved. First and foremost, I feel relieved that I was trusted with an enormous responsibility by the studios and the production company and by the cast. Your people are trusting you with their careers. And of course, television's a team sport. It's not all just about me by any means. But as the creative person who has creative leadership on the series on the ground, it weighs heavily on me to be a good steward for the resources I've been given, and to do right by the people who've given up years of their life, often away from family, to come and do the show. So I felt really relieved because the first reviews, particularly Collider, who've been really supportive of the show, got everything we were trying to do on the second season. I'd made a number of big swings creatively on this season, and I felt very relieved that they were understood and appreciated. But then, you also just feel proud of the team. I feel so proud of my team. I truly believe that we have the best cast and crew ever assembled in Australia or an Australian production. And I say that, I'm biased, but I say that as objectively as I can. We are working with the absolute best of the best. And so to have the opportunity to go home and to show what Australian television can do with an American budget, it was a real privilege. And so I just feel very grateful that the work of everybody on the team which has all been come together to make this project, has been enjoyed. And, on a personal level, I'm glad that my career is still afloat.
That is the important part, I suppose. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, Jim, there are so many great actors on the show. I'm actually staggered by the cast. It's incredible.
So am I.
Yeah. Did you have any of them in mind while you were writing the series? And which one do you consider your most surprising get, for lack of a better word, the one that made you realize that you had a legitimate show that could get people to watch?
Well, all of the three leads were amazing and surprising to get. I did write Fagin for David Thewlis. Yes, I wrote Fagin with David's voice in mind. And I recall, I don't think that David was available when we were first casting. And I was like, I was really disappointed. And then David became available and we sent him the script and he read it. And when I heard that David Thewlis wanted to do this show, I mean, honestly, could have fallen off my chair. I mean, I feel so privileged to get to work with David because aside from being one of his generation's great talents, he is the nicest, kindest man. He's brilliant intellectually. We do a lot of noodling together on Fagin's dialogues. Like, it's just a gift. And I've learned so much from him, both as a creative, but just in the way that he treats people on set. If he has a scene with a younger actor who's nervous, he'll make a point to go and say, hey, let's do a bit of rehearsal together. He's so kind and so warm, and it's just a privilege. And then again with Thomas, it was a hard search to find Dodger. We looked at a lot of different people, and again, Thomas hadn't been available, then became available. And Thomas, who's of course like David, an offer-only actor, generously agreed to chemistry read with David in the studio in London. And I remember we watched a tape of the two of them together, and it was magic. Thomas, we could have printed that and put it on TV. Thomas just breathed the character out of him from the start. And to be honest, Dodger was the hardest voice I found to get on the page because he's the romantic hero, and because he's shifting between different worlds. And it was really only when Thomas was cast and I saw how Thomas performed him in such a grounded way that I understood the character fully, I think. And again, a gift to work with Thomas. He's such a gentleman. He's so courteous and kind. And, he, Maya and David and I all place a really high premium on having a warm and kind and respectful working environment. We all share that as people. And I think that's really relevant for the show and what the tone of the show is. And so I just feel really lucky that my two British leads, got to work with such incredible people. And then Maya was such a wonderful get. I don't know if that's the right word. It was just wonderful to have the opportunity to work with Maya because we'd looked, again, lots of brilliant international actresses for Lady Belle. Mm-hmm. But for me, the one thing that I think is crucial in that character is that she have a sense of humor and a reverence and a spark of wit and a sparkle of humor behind her eye. Because otherwise I don't think the character lands. And Maya was so generous in agreeing to chemistry read for us when she was in the middle of shooting a movie. I mean, she kind of went into her trailer to chemistry read. And immediately the warmth and humor came through Belle from her read. And it's because it's who Maya is. You know, Maya is such a warm and kind and funny, really funny, down-to-earth person. She's so generous. She'll always make sure, as a former child actor herself, whenever there's a child actor on set, she'll go and chat to them and make them feel comfortable.
Aww.
You know, again, I just feel so fortunate to have got to work with these three wonderful leads who are just lovely people. And if forgive me if I sound too earnest, but they're just great folks. And so to have had the opportunity,
that's very warm-hearted.
Well, and we work closely together in different ways. I work more like a playwright in the English theatre, I suppose. So, when the lines are written, I like them to be delivered as they're written because of the cadences. But I work really extensively with the team and with the actors beforehand to land the lines right. We'll quite often change lines or change beats. I have an open door policy with the leads, and they will come in and we'll just talk through every scene. And if something doesn't work, I'll change it. And so that opportunity to be collaborative with them is brilliant because I see character creation as something that happens in between the actor and the writer. I've never subscribed to the idea that this is my character that someone else is playing. It's our character, and both of us are necessary to bring that character to life. So look, and then as a result, particularly of David being cast, we were so fortunate to just get the best Australian actors you could ever ask for. I mean, it's phenomenal the talent that we've got to work with in Australia. Susie Porter plays Lady Jane, and Damien Garvey, and then Lucy Rose Leonard as Fanny, and Bridget Zengeni as Rottie. We really lucked out. And so many names. Nick Burton as Rainsford Sneed, and Vivo Soga as Hetty. I mean, we have people like Jess DeGale agreeing to come on and do sort of fun bit parts. Tim Minchin coming in as a brilliant Darius.
Yeah, we might want to pause there real quick. Right. Tim Minchin.
So, I mean, I could just keep going on about the cast. But
the reason I say pause is because Tim Minchin is probably Sal's favorite celebrity period. Yeah, he's a big Tim Minchin fan.
I'm a huge Tim Minchin fan.
I'm a huge Tim Minchin fan. He's a lovely fellow. We actually went to schools across the road from each other. He's a bit older than me, so we didn't know each other. But the thing I love about Tim is that it was the first time I was running a show, and so I was nervous. I had a lot of big talent that were coming into work. This was the first weeks of Dodger One. And we have a lot of friends in common, but we'd never met. And Tim comes into my office and just rugby tackles me and goes, "McNamara, this is your show." And it was lovely. It was just fun. And he's always been incredibly supportive and generous with his time. He's a wonderful performer and is a lovely fellow. And so, Tim's a gift to get to work with. And I think that Darius has new territory in this season that's fun for him to explore.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because Tim Minchin is so publicly atheist that it's really interesting seeing him play spiritual tunes on the organ or pray. I mean, is that an intentional choice because he is so publicly atheist?
No, I wasn't thinking about that, to be honest. I should probably raise that with him. Sorry about that, Tim. I thought it would be funny because I was like, what's the place where Darius would be the most miserable? And I thought being because
accurate,
second in a church. No, actually, it was generated by an idea of Tim's between seasons. He was like, what if Darius becomes like a tent revival preacher and starts to fleece money out of the congregation, which I thought was really funny as a way of getting his wife back. And that didn't end up working out as well. But I thought, well, what if he's kind of hiding out in the church and he's robbing the church, but actually he's a bit superstitious and starts to wonder maybe this could all be true, and to go on this bizarre kind of spiritual conversion, which ultimately ends in a little bit of murder, as he puts it at Oh no, you haven't seen that bit.
Yeah, that's okay.
Anyway, Darius will come back to form. You'll be pleased to know towards the end of the series. But it was just, what I tried to do more broadly in this season was just to push the characters into messier, more dramatic circumstances, doing things like making Darius a curate, making Fanny a criminal. Like, you get to play against established type in a way that I think is fun for the actor. Because really, my primary objective when I'm writing a scene is this: will the actor have fun doing this today? Will they read this scene and go, this is going to be a fun day at work? And that's it. And also, if my dad will laugh. If my dad will laugh, he's my primary audience. If dad will laugh, I've done something right.
Great. Well, you brought up Fanny. Kirt, go ahead. Take it away about Fanny.
Oh, Fanny. Actually, speaking of that, Collider, right? They had an article and they talked about Fanny Breaking Bad, and that occurring from like a breakfast idea. How did you guys make that decision? Yeah. Like, we were amazed that occurred, and makes her character so much more interesting. We did not anticipate that whatsoever.
It's probably our favorite event of the season is Fanny Breaking Bad. So
it was a lot of fun. I mean, look, here's how it worked. I decided between seasons I wanted to write a play about 3 Victorian sisters who accidentally murdered their suitor and had to get rid of the body before their mother came home. And I was telling, after the last press tour, the season 1 press tour, David and Lucy Rose and my wife, Rebecca, who's the bassist for Lady Bell, and I were having breakfast before we all went on our separate ways to the airport. And I asked the leads each season, what's on your bucket list? Is there something you'd really like to do? And we were talking about that, and they sort of said, well, what do you want to happen in this season? And I said, well, I'd like Fanny to do something bad. And I was telling them about this idea for my play, and Lucy Rose said, well, what if Fanny does that? And I was like, what if Fanny does that? That's a brilliant idea. And so we kind of chatted about it. It was just a joke. It was a jokey chat, in the morning before we went up to the airport. But it really stuck with me, and I thought, fuck it, we should do this. Sorry, I shouldn't swear. I said, we should do this, right? We should do this. This would be fun. So it was actually the first creative decision I made. And I'm just and spoiler alert coming up, I'm so profoundly grateful that Disney let me have a suitor, a romantic hero die in a rogue pottery accident. It was just to film that. It was really tricky to film that, actually. I just think that Zach and Lucy Rose did such a brilliant job in the scene, and Ben C. Lucas, who directed it. It was a tricky technical scene to land, and they nailed it.
Hilarious scene. I may never have laughed so hard at a death.
I would, in the edit room, every time we watch this, I would shriek with laughter. I mean, sobbing and laughing at my own joke, right? I mean, and to be clear, this scene was brilliantly written by Kate Mulvaney rather than me. So Kate did the writing, but yes, laughing at my own joke every time I saw it.
Look, can I ask what the original plan was going to be with Phineas then? If his original introduction wasn't supposed to be murder?
That was the original plan.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Okay, so you did it as a... I got it, all right.
Phineas existed to be killed off. I wanted to make it...
It was a very good version.
Most wonderful, perfect possible match. And things like, there's a mouse in my wall that's from my own life. Like, I had a drink with David. This is going to sound like I'm name dropping, but I found myself with Sir David Attenborough at a drinks party. It was David and my wife and I.
Wow. And
for me, growing up with parents who are naturalists and scientists, David Attenborough was like God, right? Mm-hmm. And I was starstruck. It's the only time in my life I've been truly starstruck. I could not speak. Mm-hmm. And my wife, who's American, I don't think had quite the same David Attenborough kind of reverence as I did, was chattering away very politely. And all I could think of to say is, there's a mouse in my wall. I think he's been there for some time. And I was like, you can't say that to David Attenborough. You can't say that. And I was so in my own head. But all I managed to say was, nice to meet you, Sir David. But anyway, we then put that into the script, and it was one of my favorite lines in the series.
That's great. Probably my favorite character in the series, and you mentioned it earlier, that's when Oliver came to life, is Fagin. And I grew up watching the musical, just like recreating all the scenes in my living room as Fagin. I got to play Fagin in a production.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. I've got. I read the book, and I just all of my focus was on Fagin. So I love Fagin. But what we love to do in this show is we love to debate his motives a lot, especially in season 1. So I wanted to ask you, what's your take on Fagin? Who is actually his number one? Is it possible that he cares more about Jack than himself, or is that not even an option for him?
I think it's a great question. I suppose I'd say that my interpretation of Fagin is as you see him, but to me, what I'm always working with is that Fagin is a deeply selfish man who is that way because of his circumstance. He, what is not in the series but is in the backstory is he had a really, really difficult experience on the streets as a kid. He was from a family there were too many kids and was basically kind of turfed out, had to fend for himself. And so for him, thievery is the way that he's been able to build himself a future, keep himself alive. And so when in my version of Fagin, which I think is a more empathetic version than Dickens's is, when he takes in Oliver, when he takes in Dodger, it's to try and give them a trade and keep them alive. Mm-hmm. But Fagin is also selfish and believes that then they need to help him out, right? That they've got to help out with the family business. And Dodger's a snotty little bastard because he's completely ungrateful of the fact that Fagin kept him alive, gave him a profession, which now Dodger is too big for. I think that Fagin, in his head, number one is Fagin. In his heart, number one is Jack. And that's the conflict, is that it's always intention. And I also think something that we play with carefully is that Fagin loves Dodger in a way that's selfish. He loves Dodger in the way that Fagin wants to love Dodger. And really, Fagin's journey over the series is to learn to become more altruistic, which he does in tiny increments. But usually there's always a conflict between, is this actually helping out Fagin more than Dodger? And playing with that seesawing of the two different things is what I think generates the drama. And again, a character like that only works with an actor of the caliber of David in the role. We structure each character in The Artful Dodger as either a drama character or a comedy character, which is part of how we maintain the tonal balance. And Fagin is the only one who traverses both. So he's kind of like a Shakespearean fool in that sense, where he's both a drama character and a comedy character at once. Yeah. And that's tricky, and it works because David is playing the role.
This seems like this seems like philosophy, which we can talk about more later. But from your short story that we listened to, or I should say essay, about the golden age of television.
Oh gosh, yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. So you describing that kind of reminds me of that. Yeah. But anyway,
that was an important piece for me because it really helped me. This was when, in Australia, put it this way, when I wrote that piece in 2015, we didn't have any streaming services.
Right. That is true.
And so that was kind of just at the end of the first, where we're starting to reflect on the end of the first era of television. And that was me kind of thinking it through at a time when it was still something new to say that television was actually literary and artistic and do interesting things. So for me, I think I was figuring out a lot of what I liked in television while I wrote that piece. It was really important for my own thought, I think.
Yeah. So what from that, what series from that era? You talked about The Sopranos, The Wire, Deadwood, Mad Men, Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones. I'm sure in some way they all kind of influenced Dodger, but can you cite a specific instance where that influenced Dodger more than the others?
It's a really good question. Tonally, Dodger is more influenced by film.
Sure.
But I will circle back to television. Like for me, Shakespeare in Love is probably my most prominent reference.
I can see
There's also a film, working titles only critical and commercial failure, which I love, called Plunkett McLean, which is about a gentleman who becomes a highwayman, but has an amazing contemporary soundtrack. Guy Ritchie's Lock, Stock is a big influence too.
Love that.
But then for television, probably slightly earlier actually, the things that really made me want to write TV were The West Wing and Buffy.
Okay.
And what I love about
you did mention those too, yeah.
Right. What I love about both of those shows is that and I think something that Aaron Sorkin has said directly is that life is neither funny or sad, it's both. And both of those are shows written in a drama structure that have comic dialogue. And so for us, everyone in my writer's room is a comedy writer working in the drama space. And so that was important. And then I think that both of those shows have a warm heart, and they're fundamentally about an ensemble of characters who are a family. And I think I took that across too. And then I think, from the cable era of streaming, Breaking Bad is probably the primary reference for me, again, because of the tonal balance. Like, you look at the second episode, like, firstly, that pilot is, I think, the greatest pilot ever shot. But if you look at the second episode, I think it's the second episode, where he's trying to dissolve a body in a bathtub, it's funny as well as horrifying. And, like, to get that tonal mobility, I wrote a piece after that one when Fleabag came out the next year. And Fleabag is the other big show that was really influential on Dodger because of the incredible skill with which Phoebe Waller-Bridge manages tonal shifts. I mean, I think that she's a capital G genius. She's extraordinary, but the way she shifts from harrowing to hilarious in a beat is tricky, and that for me is my most difficult. That's really my most difficult job on Dodger, is maintaining that tonal balance, not only at the script level, but then as the creative executive producer on the ground on the show across all departments. And Fleabag was really important for that.
That's great. Yeah, it's something that I seek out in television now, is can you walk that line between drama and comedy? All of my favorite series do toe that line, and Dodger is among them. Another thing that I love in television is morally ambiguous characters. And certainly you've got them like all over this series. Do you view Jack or Fagin or anybody else as maybe not an anti-hero like a Tony Soprano or a Walter White, but someone who exists because of those characters?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think that, the Sopranos and Breaking Bad in particular exemplified to me how to take an anti-hero and make them empathetic at the same time. Like, Tony Soprano is objectively is a horrifying human being, but you still want him to win, right? Same with Walter White. And I guess what I'm always interested in is that I think that perhaps I don't push into quite as hard into the anti-hero territory, but just into the moral mess of it. I would say that the characters like Fagin, has all sorts of moral problems, but I'm showing you why he is the way he is. And that to me is what's most interesting in drama, is not taking a hard position on this is a good guy, this is a bad guy, but like, why is the person that way? So for me, Lady Jane is probably the season 2's main structural antagonist, but Lady Jane is acting from a position of fear and love. Yes. And I think that if you can show why an antagonist is doing it, even Gaines on season 1, I really wanted to articulate, like in episode 6 of season 1, why does he do what he does? And he goes back to Hobbesian philosophy to try and explain to Belle, and she said, yes, I've read Hobbes. But he had a reason for what he was doing. I disagree with his reason. So I think if those characters hadn't come onto the screen, it would have been harder to make that show. I think that the only truly, truly good character on The Artful Dodger is probably Hetty.
Hetty, yes.
Hetty is the moral center for me.
Sure.
And Tim as well. Hetty and Tim in the hospital. I mean, the governor is a nice fellow, but he does screw up a bit. But yeah, Hetty, I always think Hetty is the one person that I would trust with my life on that job.
It was interesting. We have another candidate for that position that we wanted to bring up, and that is Boxer. So he's such an interesting character.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. You intentionally referred to him in the first episode of season 2 as the new Gaines. I mean, not you personally, but characters referred to him as that way. So our mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote that line, so I guess it was.
Right. Our mindset was, antagonist. This is our main opposition because we're with Jack and Belle and Fagin, and yet we both have taken such a liking to this character. One of us even going so far as to ship Belle with him instead of Jack. The other one of us going so far as to say I would have probably fallen right into his arms at that point. So can you talk about your choice to make Jack's opposition so sympathetic and why that was important?
It's a great question, and thank you for asking it. I mean, like with Fanny pushing her into being a criminal and Darius pushing him into being a curate, I'm interested with that sort of dramatic tension. And for me, I thought it would be an interesting genre experiment to say what would happen if the person who in any other series would be your hero you put him in a position of antagonism to your lead characters. And to me, that's sort of an extension of my belief that every antagonist should be understood. And in this case, the antagonist, we refuse to make him a bad guy.
Right.
And that was something that I spoke with Luke Bracey, such a talented actor.
So good. Yeah.
When I was talking with Luke about why I'd be so grateful if he came and played the role, it was to set that out, that this is a genre, this is an interesting play, I hope, on genre, that we're making you the hero, but you're putting you in the seat of antagonism. And I wanted to do it because I'm really interested in the way that Shakespeare uses genre as a place to generate dramatic tension. So like Romeo and Juliet, which is my favorite play, is expressly coded as an Elizabethan comedy. When you start it up as the audience, you are thinking this is a comedy, right?
Wow.
It's got all the characteristics of Elizabethan comedy. It's fun. It's got a ball. There's two young lovers. There are the blocking figures and the parents. There's magic. There's sex. It's everything that Elizabethan comedy has. And then when Mercutio dies, it slams into a tragedy. And that, to me, makes it much more poignant than if it started out as a tragedy from the get-go. Likewise, Much Ado About Nothing, it starts as a comedy. It veers very close to tragedy and then pulls back. And Shakespeare was writing the plays within a couple of years of each other. So that was directly in my mind when I was thinking about Boxer's character. Obviously, I'm writing at a very different level to Shakespeare, but he's nevertheless the touchstone for me. And so I wanted to experiment with that. And then also the idea of having some kind I shy away from the term love triangle, to be honest, because it isn't one. But I wanted to explore Belle being pushed to think, is Jack really the right person for me? Like, there's a difference between, I think of the season as like, season 1 is teenage love, and then season 2 is like, wait, am I actually going to marry the guy that's taking apart a Harley Davidson in my living room conversation, right? And so I wanted to pose with Boxer someone who was directly somebody that had Belle met Henry Boxer before she met Dodger. It could have been a very happy marriage. They have an intellectual equality. They're from a similar class background. He's a very nice man. He's a decent man. He's a dutiful man. And in a way, what I wanted to do was to show up what makes Dodger a less viable candidate. Dodger is a criminal. He's a good criminal. He's our criminal, but he's still a crook. Henry Boxer is not. He is a rigidly moral man, but I think he gets to be that rigidly moral man because he's come from money and Dodger hasn't. So it was a great way to I wanted to try and do my version of a love triangle, which firstly plays it more through Jack's jealousy. I never wanted the audience to be in any doubt that Belle's loyalty to Jack wasn't truthful. And Maya felt strongly about that too. We talked about that a lot. So that relationship is sacrosanct. But I also wanted to explore the fact of, sometimes love is circumstantial. There are times in life where, but for a misconnection, or, like they say in episode 6, if I'd met you in another life, this could have been perfect.
Beautiful
and
season.
Me, oh, thank you. Well, beautifully performed by those two, and driving fake rain. But I wanted to. That was my homage to the end of Four Weddings and a Funeral, the rain scene. But I wanted to explore my version of a love triangle in a sort of slightly more nuanced way than you might have otherwise seen it play out. And I think the Boxer being a truly good guy was key to that.
Yeah. It works. It has worked so well. I can't wait to see where that story goes. As I said, we haven't watched the finale yet.
Oh, you've got some fun stuff in store for you.
I'm so excited. I
just wanted to really, note Luke's performance, because that performance relies on subtlety. And Luke Bracey is a tremendous actor. He's now playing the lead in Little House on the Prairie. Tremendous Australian actor. He's like an old school movie star to me. He's very courtly, generous man as well as a performer. And he really wants to get every beat of it right. It was a gift to get to work with him because he really wanted to make sure Boxer's story landed. And it was a tricky role, I think, to land well. Luke
Absolutely. It was great. I mean, I love Boxer. I talked about it. I like Boxer more than Jack. And I went to the series, or the season especially.
I mean, hopefully that's what we wanted to do is like, how do you in that way, I think it shows what's a testament to Luke's performance that, you can do that. And then it's a testament to Thomas's performance that you still ultimately are happy if Jack and Belle get back together, which yet to find out.
We'll have to see. But zooming out from Boxer, right? You introduced multiple new characters in season 2, right? Dickie, Uriah Heep, which you kind of already mentioned a little bit, right?
Sure.
What were your decisions adding these new characters? I mean, we just talked about Boxer. Any favorites, right? Maybe a bit more on Dickie and Uriah Heep.
You mentioned new characters. So I think it's important with the second series to introduce new characters to shake up existing dynamics. And I was really interested to explore what makes Lady Jane the way that she is. Why is Lady Jane so reflexively opposed to Jack and Belle? And I think, from an 1850s standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. It just would not be fathomable for somebody of that class bracket to marry someone of Dodge's station, even if he wasn't a criminal. But to reinforce that, I think for a contemporary audience, I wanted to show why Lady Jane is the way she is, and you'll find out why in episode 8. And I'm convinced part of that. So I wanted to introduce an amusing rogue. I always loved Lord Flashheart from Blackadder, the BBC series from the 80s. And I wanted to do a dissolute, half-drunken, privileged lord who goes around the British Empire, ruining things and getting away with it. I worked in London during the financial crisis as a lawyer. I saw a lot of those types destroying the world economy, and this is my version. Hopefully they won't all turn around and sue me. Dickie sort of was born from that. And I also wanted to show how would having an older brother there impact on the governor? Because I think that, and again, you'll see in episode 8, and you saw that in episode 6, though, I think, where the governor really stands up for Belle. Yeah, I think the governor really comes into his own. Because for me, the governor, I structure him as he is a purely comic character. He's inspired by P.G. Wodehouse, he's inspired by Lord Emsworth and Bertie Wooster. Sorry, that's my shredder turning on. This is the dangers of a writer's life. And so I wanted to show that, before he was the governor, he was a really competent military officer. It's just he's not a politician. Right. His wife is a politician. She's brilliant. Right. She's a great politician. And he's a sort of somebody who's very good at opening fates and commanding men, but is less able to deal with the machinations of running a colony. Also, so I think that Dickie, great at lifting platinum. Yeah. That was a challenging episode. We rewrote that whole platinum bread thing was the product of a swift rewrite in the middle of production because our previous idea didn't work.
Because it was
it was hilarious. I think that was my favorite feed for that episode.
I had a lot of fun with it. Thank you. My buddy Cam, who was a series producer, as I say, we had offices next to each other. He was overseeing the operations and logistics, I oversee the creative, but we'd talk every day. And we had to change for various production reasons, which happens all the time. You're constantly changing stuff. We had to remove the whole heist that we were planning because we worked out during pre-production just wasn't going to be something we could execute. Yeah. And so we basically had to come up with something new, really fast. And we both went away and we turned on our heels because we were thinking, what can we hide platinum in? And we both turned and at the same time walked back to each other and went, bread. And so that made it into the script, right? That literally was what we said. And so, I turned around and rewrote this. But it was it was a really fun creative collaboration between me and Cam. We actually we were planning originally I wrote this whole thing, this doggerel of Fagin singing the French national anthem. It was words that sounded like French words, but weren't. But we weren't allowed to film it because it's actually a crime to record a parody version of the French national anthem in France where the show broadcast. So that was something that ended up not being filmed. But I was quite delighted at the prospect that I may have accidentally got into trouble for writing a parody French national anthem.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Hilarious.
I have an idea. Let me pitch this to you. As long as you're bringing in characters from other Dickens novels, I am trying not to get too excited about seeing Abel Magwitch show up in a British penal colony.
That's a very interesting. It's interesting you raise that because to me, my version of Fagin draws much more on Magwitch and Mr. Micawber than Dickens's Fagin. I actually think that my version of Fagin is quite, and David's version of Fagin is quite distinctly different from Dickens's. Yes. But Magwitch is interesting. Yeah, there's a bit of Magwitch in Fagin. I think, in the way that he wants to control Jack. Yes. So yeah, you never know if we get another season. Who knows?
He may have been at a penal colony. We don't know. So.
Well, that was the because of course Ike Solomon, who was I'm sure you know this, but Ike Solomon, who was the actual historical basis for Fagin, was a criminal who was constantly in and out of trouble in London and was transported to Australia and is the basis for the character. And that's the reason why there was the genesis originally to set the show in Australia.
Oh, interesting. That's fantastic. So much of season 2 has been about elevating characters who had relatively minor roles. When you talked about Ed, we have been so impressed with Sneed and Prof in this season. A character like Fanny who takes this huge turn. Jane simply gets more screen time, so we get to learn more about her. So which of those elevations would you say has been your favorite to see play out?
Look, Fanny was a great joy to write. I love Susie Porter's, and I love Lucy Rose's performance as Fanny. I love watching Susie Porter and Maya Mitchell act together on the first season. And there's a big scene between them, I think in episode 7, where Lady Jane had found Dodger and Bell in bed together.
Yes.
And we ended up needing to cut a lot of the dialogue out, and we played that scene through kind of Bell almost not hearing it when she was so stressed out. But I remember being on set and watching that happen, and it was electric watching Maya Mitchell and Susie perform together. And I'd wanted to do more of that. I just wanted to give them more opportunities to butt heads, and so I was glad I got the chance to do that. Nicholas Burton, who plays Rainford Sneed, is a tremendously talented actor. Like Lucy Rose, he's a classically trained theatre actor. He's a very talented comedy writer and director in his own right. He and his creative partner and best friend, Dave Hoey, have a comedy sketch group called Granny Flat Comedy. And every week they push out an amazing sketch. They've had sketches with David Thewlis, with Thomas Brodie Sangster, with Maya Mitchell on a far lesser level of precedence. They've had me as a cameo in one of them, so that's probably a reason not to watch. But watch the rest of it. But it was great to watch. Nick is a really, really nuanced actor. And what I love about writing Sneed, who's I think the favorite name I came up with, Rainsford Sneed, is that Sneed is a complicated man. I always think of him as kind of like twisted in on himself. He's like a knot. And I think he wishes that he was friends with Dodger, but isn't quite sure how to express it. And in this series, I think you see that he's grown up a bit, and it's not just sort of boys' rivalry. He has kept Dodger alive functionally by sending him food in prison. He is the one that intercedes for Jack. And partly it's because he needs him. But also, it's partly because he's a decent leader. I mean, to be honest, I would not want Jack Dawkins to be the head surgeon of that hospital because he'd be bored. He'd never do the paperwork. He's a great cutter, but Sneed's a better administrator. And I think when you see episode 8, you'll see a big bravura scene between Nick and another of the actors you've mentioned that I won't give away, that you see Nick really, really firing on every cylinder. And gosh, he's a tremendous performer. Lovely, lovely guy as well. Yeah. Again, I'm very gifted. I have a gift. I'm not very gifted. It's a
humble
gift.
brag.
I'm very lucky. I have the gift of working with Jack. This will be the pull quote for this episode. McNamara declares himself very gifted, quote unquote. It's a gift to get to work with. I'm very lucky to have the benefit of working with him. So, and then Kim Gyngell, an extraordinary Australian actor. What I love about Kim is that Kim made his name in Australia working in comedy, but he's a profoundly deep, dramatic actor. And I wanted to give Prof the opportunity to play drama in this series. So we gave him that storyline of a man who has been supplanted but hasn't let go. So he's watching himself become an irrelevance through this series. And I think that you'll find there's a hopefully you'll enjoy the ending we have to that story in the next episode.
I'm sure that we will.
I love the beginning of the season, just on the rip that he's no longer an alcoholic. And he's still hilarious.
That makes him less confident. Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, honestly, but I think that you'll find out in the last episode, you'll find out a lot more about Prof.
Okay.
But Prof, and you found out also that Prof lost his son. I mean, the reason to me,
yes,
Prof's a tragic story. Oh, thank you. He's a tragic story because he was a really good surgeon, but when his boy died and he blamed himself for it, he became a drunk and he drank his talent away, and he drinks because he's self-loathing. He blames himself for his son dying, and then he blames himself for ruining his own talent. And it's a constant competition between him trying to assert himself, both to himself and to the hospital, and also falling back into his destructive habits. And to get to play that dramatically rather than comedically was great to see, and it's a testament to Kim's range as an actor that he can pull that off.
Yeah, you and any other writers on the series are particularly adept at finding sympathy in characters that seem unsympathetic. So it was particularly prevalent in the episode that you mentioned where Jane and Belle butt heads after she finds her in bed with Jack, because we talked about it on our podcast that every seeming antagonist is motivated by something you can sympathize with. Jane is, Dickie is, Dickie's terrified of the East India Company. Fagin, I mean, is always sympathetic to me. I love the man. Jack, obviously. Anybody you can name.
Professor.
Ames, Prof. Even Uriah Heep urinates out of his belly button. So there's something there.
Well, that was a really conscious choice for that reason, because I wanted to take somebody who was a really noxious villain, but try to understand why they are the way they are. The guy's grown up his whole life being maligned and shoved aside because he smells, and he's different. And of course he's become who he's become. So that's my addition to Dickens there. And also, because in the book, Uriah Heep has this really close relationship with his mum. And I wanted to bring his mum is the one person that thought he was special. Right. And so for me, that's the gold in writing an antagonist, is that I think it comes from, my favorite tragedy is Macbeth. And what I love about Macbeth is you're up close and personal with a murderer, but it's more impactful to me than Richard III, who says, "You know what, I'm a bad guy. Let's go kill some people." Because Macbeth is a normal person who says, "I shouldn't do this, but actually I really want that crown." Yep. And so to watch someone who's human but also doing bad things, I think is more impactful as a villain than not.
Absolutely.
I mean, I feel like it generally makes more interesting characters.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I like doing in drama. And just for context, the other writers on this series, who are all very brilliant, I got to work with Kate Mulvaney, who's a very decorated Australian playwright who plays Mrs. Maxwell in episode 5, and a very decorated Australian stage and screen actor as well. Miranda Tapsell, who played the character of Red in season 1, and then Daniel Knight, who was also a writer on the first series too. Great writing team. And then we worked with 2 consultants, Blaine Welsh, who was our Indigenous Australian consultant, and then Goretti Chadwick, who was our Samoan consultant. And so, it was a great writer's room, and their voices are all through this.
That's great. I know you're short on time. I wanted to ask you one question about the music in the series, because I love the style of the series where you do incorporate pop songs into 1800s Australia. Yeah. And some of the needle drops are particularly impressive. I think my favorite one, and I think Kurt's as well, was when you used Cheap Thrills at the Ball, and then you had an orchestrated version of the same song playing with, and that's what they danced to. Where do you come up with that style choice? Is that something you always wanted to incorporate? Is that coming from someone else?
No, that was coming. The overarching style choice is coming from me. So what I try to do as the creative EP across the show is I sort of set out the broad I keep the heart and soul of the show. That's my job. And then I work with really talented heads of department. I get out of their way. I let them cook, but I make very clear what the show is, and where necessary, I make adjustments. Yeah. But having that musical choice was something I felt strongly about from the start, inspired actually by my love of the film Plunkett McLean, which uses, like, for example, an amazing house song for a formal ball in the late 18th century. Because when I watched Plunkett McLean when I was in college, I saw a historical drama that nevertheless had pistol, like shootouts with flintlock pistols, horse and carriage chases. It felt so fresh and immediate and present. And one thing I wanted to do with a historical drama is, for them, it didn't feel like a museum piece. For them, it felt like Tuesday, right?
Right.
And so for me, I feel like we tried to bring that across in the visual style, which was set up, with in partnership with the setup director from the first season, my friend and colleague Jeffrey Walker. And then in addition to the shooting style, I think the music helps to immediately pull the audience into a contemporary feeling, and it also is kind of I'm always looking for like an umami tone where it's like it's old but new at the same time. Mm-hmm. So the broad contemporary music choice was my decision, but then the implementation of that's my buddy Cam on this series. Cam Welsh, the series producer, really took the lead on that. We had a great music supervisor as well, and then of course the production company and the studio are pretty involved in the music choices too, for licensing issues and also just overseeing the general tone of it. So the EPs, there are 3 executive producers on the show. Ultimately we kind of all discussed the music together, but my friend Cam Welsh, as series producer, really did the yards on that. And he was the one that chose Cheap Thrills, which was a great choice, and orchestrating it was a great choice. So yeah, full credit to Cam for that one.
Great. Do you have a favorite song that's been used?
I was really happy that we used Powderfinger in episode 2, as Belle, as Fagin is leading Jack away from Belle. That was an anthem of mine in 1999 when I was finishing high school. I love that song. And, Jeff Walker, the setup director on the first series, suggested Joker and the Thief as a way to start the series. We ended up having to change the start of the pilot a lot, quite close to filming. So Jeff and I came up with this idea of starting with a big kind of needle drop, Joker and the Thief. And that's really become evocative of the show to me. So those are my 2 favorites, I think.
Fantastic. Great choices. Jim, we'd keep you forever, but do you have any questions for us at all?
I guess I'm just really happy that you've enjoyed the show. I'm really appreciative that the fact that you're running this podcast, I'm so appreciative for, because to me, like, the fact that other people love these characters in the way that we do is so revealing. But I guess, do you have any like specific niche questions that you wanted to ask me? I'm happy to answer a last one.
Oh, okay. What else are you watching right now?
It's a great question. I actually, when I'm making, I can't watch anything.
That makes sense.
I read a lot. I watched a lot of Sergio Leone movies through making this show, as you'll find out the reason for that in episode 8.
I'm so excited for this finale. We're getting so hyped up now.
Lots of Sergio Leone. I always watch Fellini's 8.5 while I'm filming, because when I'm really feeling the pressure, watching somebody else feel the pressure as well is helpful. Right now, I haven't watched any TV since I made Dodger 2, because I haven't been able to yet, but I have just started watching films again. Okay. I just watched Hamnet, which blew my mind. Mm-hmm. I adored that film. I think Chloe Zhao's a genius. I think it's an extraordinary film. It's so beautiful. Jessie Buckley and Paul Mescal's performances are truly stellar, and I'm so happy that Jessie Buckley won the Academy Award for that performance. And then I watched One Battle After Another last night, which again I thought was amazing, like incredible performances, but the cinematography in that, using VistaVision, stunning, absolutely stunning cinematography, and full credit to that great team for making that. So those are my 2 favorite things so far.
That's probably my favorite car chase that I've seen in a movie. Great.
The gliding camera on that street, it is. I'm a professor at the University of California at Santa Barbara. I'm teaching the film school. I will be teaching that for years. It's going to be great. So that's what I've been watching. But look, I just wanted to thank you guys so much for, honestly, the time and effort you put into the show and to the discussion of the show. It really means a lot to us. And I just thank you for everything that you're doing, talking about the project. And I'm happy that you've enjoyed it. Hope you enjoy episode 8.
It'll be kind of hilarious if we don't.
It will. I'll take it personally. No, I'm just kidding. Circle back and tell me what you think once you've seen it. I'd love to hear your.
We will.
Good or bad.
Yeah, It's been our absolute pleasure watching the show and having you on. We can't thank you enough for taking the time with us. Hopefully, maybe season 3. We hope season 3.
Yeah, I don't know if you. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yes,
I hope so. But I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. It feels like we're doing it in a pub over a couple of beers, which is always the best way to discuss the show. So thank you so much for a lovely interview, and again, thank you so much for your support of the show.
If there is a season 3, then feel free to join us again.
I'll tell you what, we'll do it. If there is a season 3, I'll look forward to our next conversation.
Yes, Jim, thank you so much for joining us. We can't thank you enough.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show. Bye.